So, Ohio State won the national championship. You might be asking yourself, what kind of a loving God would allow such a thing? Maybe he needed to balance the scales a bit between good and, less good. Today on Team Rivalry, we're taking a look back at Ohio State's historic season. Wait, was it historic? Okay, really good season. How about that? Anyway, the Buckeyes started the season in dramatic fashion. They trailed Akron 3-0 late in the first quarter, giving Michigan fans hope that maybe Ohio State actually sucks this year. Nope. The next week, my alma mater, Western Michigan, offered themselves as tribute at the altar of Ryan Day's revenge season. The game ended so badly for the Broncos that it made me question the validity of my degrees. Can an entire school lose their accreditation on account of their football team being a steaming pile of hot garbage? Michigan State would be in trouble. Ohio State would blow through their next three opponents, only scoring a measly 35-plus points per game, including giving first-year coach Jonathan Smith an unfriendly welcome to the Big Ten, and giving Kirk Ferentz a hearty, "Wait, you're still here?" Then came the big one, the first big one. Ohio State versus Oregon. The game that would establish supremacy in the Big Ten and was likely to be replayed in the Big Ten Championship. Likely, but not guaranteed, and you'll find out why later. Oregon and Ohio State would trade first quarter touchdowns and go into the second quarter with a 1-point differential, because apparently Oregon didn't practice extra points that week. Ohio State would open the second quarter with a score, but Oregon quickly followed suit just to go for two, and what even is this formation? Danny boy, just 'cause you can doesn't mean you should.
It's gonna be short.
In fact, sometimes you really shouldn't. Oregon kicker and likely British aristocrat Atticus Sappington would send through a field goal, giving Oregon their first lead of the game without spilling a single drop of tea, I might add. I say, jolly good show there, Atticus, my lad. Not to be outdone by the incognito British aristocracy, one William Howard declares his independence by throwing a 15-yard touchdown heard round the world to Emeka Egbuka. The teams would go back and forth the rest of the way until Sappington would once again give Oregon a lead, impressing both Oregon fans and King Charles.
I'm waiting to be impressed.
Ohio State would attempt a late resurgence, but it fell short when Will Howard decided to take a nap in the middle of the field. I don't feel bad making fun of him for this. They won the national championship. Anyway, the loss to Oregon spooks Ohio State. Or something, because suddenly Nebraska's walking into Columbus looking like a competent football team. And that's not a criticism of Nebraska. It's just Ohio State tends to make even good college football teams wish they were in the classes that their NIL fund is paying them to skip. Nebraska takes the lead in the fourth quarter, but they make this horrible mistake of forgetting that the game isn't over. So Ohio State takes back the lead. Nebraska has a meltdown that would make Britney Spears blush.
Raiola over the middle and intercepted.
And Ohio State escapes with the win. Then it's time for the second big one. Another game that was likely, but again, and I can't stress this enough, not guaranteed to decide a participant in the Big Ten Championship. Penn State opens the game with a field goal and then wait.
Oh, it's picked off! Oh, it's picked off!
A pick six? Wow, what a start! Penn State is on fire! Surely this is the year! Late in the first quarter, Will Howard decides he'll try throwing the ball to his own receivers, and Ohio State scores a touchdown. Solid adjustment, Howard. Late in the fourth quarter, James Franklin does probably the most egregious example of James Franklining I have ever seen. First and goal at the Ohio State 3, a chance to tie the game on the line. Penn State runs Katrin Allen for no gain. Then he does it again, only this time he gets a yard. Progress. Then he does it again and gets another yard. 2 yards gained in their last 2 plays. Surely they can get 1 more yard by running it up the middle again. What the?
Looking in the end zone, incomplete.
You seriously couldn't run 1 more time for 1 more yard? What in the name of Bobby Boucher is this nonsense? So Ohio State is gifted a win by their biggest fan, James Franklin, and goes on to destroy Purdue and humiliate Northwestern. So then Indiana comes to Columbus acting like the new kid in school who knows he's not very tough, but finds a bunch of scrawny nerds to beat up on to make it look like he's a lot tougher than he really is. Indiana starts off with a spirited performance that catches Ohio State off guard and has me thinking that I was totally justified in calling Indiana for the win. And that was a really nice 30 seconds. But then Ohio State remembered that, hey, we don't suck. And then I had to post the following on X.
Oh, okay.
With the regular season coming to a close and their only loss being to Oregon, Ohio State was in prime position to secure their appearance in the Big Ten championship game. All that was left was to get revenge on that team up north. Michigan was 6-5, barely had a functioning offense, and two of its best players announced they were sitting out the game against Ohio State. Michigan was having one of its worst seasons in recent memory, and the game would reflect that as Ohio State ran away with it, finally fulfilling Ryan Day's promise of hanging 100 points on Michigan in a single game. I can't. What am I even watching? Talk about your quintessential David and Goliath moment, only David is Davis Warren and Goliath has an irrational fear of the letter M. So Ohio State suddenly finds themselves on the couch for the conference championship weekend, sipping Pinot Grigio or whatever sad suburban housewives drink. The depression drinking doesn't last long, though, as Ohio State is awarded a spot in the college football playoff. Because apparently 2 losses, one of which was against a barely 500 team and no conference championship, is still somehow good enough to give you a chance to play for a national championship. Thing is, Ohio State didn't exactly leave much doubt that they belonged in the playoff. They responded to the Michigan loss by making a deal with the Devil in exchange for all 99 ratings for their offense and proceeded to hand Tennessee their worst loss since the Civil War. Next up was the long-awaited rematch against Oregon, a game most people thought was going to take place in the Big Ten Championship, but didn't for obvious reasons. Ohio State scored quickly to jump out to a 7-0 lead only a minute into the game, then scored again, then got a field goal, then scored again, and again, and again. Seriously, and I mean this honestly, how in the actual Urban Meyer did this team lose to Michigan? Oh yeah, never mind. So next up is Texas, the SEC's new golden child and king of unrealized expectations. The teams would trade touchdowns until late in the fourth quarter. Texas is down 21-14, but is knocking on the door. It's first and goal at the 1, and Texas is stopped for no gain. Fair enough. Ohio State's D-line is really good in these types of situations. That's when Steve Sarkisian really starts thinking outside the box and tries this bold move of running the opposite direction. Whoa! I cannot believe that didn't work! Anyway. The very next play, Jack Sawyer hits Quinn Ewers, who promptly drops the ball like your average husband who forgot to pick up the kids from football practice. Sawyer takes it 83 yards for the game-sealing touchdown, winning the hearts of not only Buckeye fans, but also the wife of the husband who forgot to pick up his kids. And with that, Ohio State punches their ticket to a national championship date with Notre Dame. It'll be Ohio State's first trip to the national title game since 2020, the season that doesn't count because of, I forget. What happened in 2020? It probably wasn't important. Notre Dame opens the date by taking things real slow and running 9 minutes 45 seconds off the clock, and then a sudden smack on the behind as they go up 7-0. Ohio State is definitely not into it, though, and lays down the law for this date, scoring 4 straight touchdowns, a field goal, and then another touchdown just to remind Notre Dame there's no chaperone on this outing. But Notre Dame is like super clingy and decides the date isn't over until they say it's over, so they score a touchdown. Which actually makes Ohio State kind of intrigued. After all, they've been ending dates early due to poor competition throughout most of the playoffs. But sometimes it's just nice to be wanted, even if it is by a crazy hobbit-looking thing from Indiana. At this point, Notre Dame is starting to act kind of drunk and thinking maybe they actually have a chance with Ohio State. So Ohio State kicks a quick field goal, calls a cab, and sticks Notre Dame with the bill. And that's it. Ohio State wins the national championship. Their first since 2014. Honestly, what a season for the Buckeyes. Sure, it had its lows and its more bizarre moments, but in the end, Ohio State proved they were the best team in college football and finally gave Ryan Day the national title he had been trying for since 2019. So congratulations, Ohio State. Hope you enjoyed the journey and all the frolicking and celebration that comes with it. But don't forget who's coming back next year.